and thank you for joining us for episode 3 of Fueling Ingenuity, which focuses on arts and public health. Fueling Ingenuity is brought to you through a partnership between Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, Broward County Cultural Division, Destination Sistrunk, and we have a wonderful show for you this evening. I'm your host, Grace Kuldurfy. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Broward County Cultural Division and Chair of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce Cultural Council. So, arts and public health. I hate to say it, arts and public health is very near and dear to my heart. As a survivor of multiple trauma, participation in the arts kept me from succumbing to the horrors. I was told to, can you hear me now? All right. I love being live, isn't it great? Now I got through the awkward moments so I can be myself with everyone. So I try so hard. I tried so hard. Thank you. So, arts and public health, as I was saying, I've survived multiple traumas, and by participating in the arts, it really helped me from succumbing to all the horrors associated with it. So I am extremely privileged and fortunate that my everyday job is about advocating for the arts. It is about arts and cultural development, heritage and historic preservation, arts and tourism, creative economy, workforce development, all of the ways where I am able to fulfill my mission for the arts to be integrated within the socioeconomic fabric of our everyday lives. And Fueling Ingenuity is one of those activities where we are able to highlight the wonderful work being done by our members of the creative economy, our artists, our cultural organizations, our for-profit businesses, as well as the individuals and organizations that really see the value of working with the arts, finding ways to bring more to their bottom line, increase the value of their impact by engaging in the arts in some form. There are so many ways that can be achieved. It's like that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where the father used to say anytime somebody had a cut or a headache, he would like put a little Windex on it. So for me, that's where the arts are at. It touches so many different ways. And I just appreciate having the opportunity to have different vehicles to be able to share the beauty of the world that we live in and ways that we can use the arts to really make a substantive change and impact in our community. So tonight's episode 3 of Fueling Ingenuity, focusing on arts and public health, we, through our work with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, and serving as chair of the Cultural Council, we sat around the table and talked about ways that we would be able to bring greater awareness to chamber members in the broader community about the ways of being able to work with the arts and the impact, all the things that I just said. And thankfully, we have such a diverse, wonderful group of members, from individual artists to organizations. And through our work with the Cultural Council, we decided to develop this Fueling Ingenuity series, give it a shot. We needed to go right into online and develop productions in ways that we have never done before. And it's been a great opportunity to expand access to information and education about the work that we do. And our featured guest this evening, Tim Davis, filmmaker, actor, producer, a community change agent, was able to work with us to develop this particular episode. And if we hadn't been involved with the chamber, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to engage. And Tim and I, he said he would volunteer to participate, had an amazing project that he had just participated in and developed in partnership and through the support of my agency, Broward Cultural Division, and has also through his theatrical productions, been involved in bringing greater attention to key public health issues and service needs. And really, the ducks fell in a row. And we were able to feed multiple birds with a feeder around arts and public health to be able to bring this multifaceted episode to you today, because we're going to be able to touch on it in so many different ways. Tim is going to be joining us. He is going to talk about the evolution of his work in arts and public health, which is fascinating. And I so appreciate it because he shared and was very candid about what he learned and how he learned even more about the gravity of our situations and the ways that change can take place through the arts. And so I'm looking forward to hearing of that. Tim, I was asked, I said, Tim, who else have you collaborated with? Who else has been involved in bringing this to the table? So much happens behind the scenes, from even people coming together to work together, particularly within public health, with our public health systems. And we have champions within our local public health systems who are open to finding ways to deepen the work and really bring messages and stories forth. So I asked him, hey, bring some great people onto our show and let's learn more about their experiences and have a really great conversation. So Tim was able to do that, and his two guests were kind enough to say that they would join us. So you're going to meet Casey and Kathy, and I'm not going to reveal anything about them because I'm going to turn this over to Tim, who will do an introduction. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Tim Davis, have you at the table and learn more and have a great conversation. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much, Grace. And thank you for having me here as a part of the Fueling Ingenuity conversations. I love what the Chamber is doing and what the Cultural Division is doing and making really a greater understanding of how arts affects all areas of our lives. Even the room we're sitting in right now, the table that right here, everything has some sort of artist behind it. And I think the more we understand that and acknowledge that, the better. So we are going to watch a short film in a minute here that I had the pleasure of producing, but I do want to introduce my guests before we do that. This is Casey Sacco. She was one of the co-writers on the project that we're about to see. She also did all of the costume designing for it. And she's a local actor and artist who I collaborate with pretty regularly. And then Kathy Hurt is to her left. Kathy is the Community Impact and Government Affairs Director for FHE Health. So she was one of our main partners and collaborators on the film that we're about to see as well. So I think we jump into the film and then we'll kind of talk about how all of us collaborated on this thing, because it's pretty fascinating.
That's great. What does FHE stand for? I live in acronym world.
That's a Kathy question. I'm sorry, Kathy. We said you weren't going to have to talk, and now you have to talk. We lied.
It stands for Florida House Experience Health, and it's a fully medically integrated behavioral health program, which I'll tell more about it later.
Yes, this is so intriguing. So back to you, Tim.
Yeah, so I think if the guys in the back are ready, I say let's jump into Two Paths.
So what you're showing is called Two Paths.
Yes.
Okay, and you just want to jump right into it. You don't want to give any teaser, any verbal trailer before
I feel like you're trying
to
to tell me that I need to do that.
I don't know. I'm just.
I mean, I will say.
Give us a little about what we're going to.
Sure. The public health issue that we were tackling in the short film was about. The name has changed so many times. Now we're calling it safe syringe service programs, or a needle exchange program. So really, it's something that uses the method of harm reduction to address the opioid crisis, specifically in Broward County, was what this film was about. So Kathy was a part of a team that was tackling different issues, which we'll definitely talk about afterwards. And they thought, telling a story about this is going to be a great way to communicate. To communicate the truth about a needle exchange program and to help people get past some of the stigmas that are around it. So that was sort of what we were charged with when we were handed the project, was how do we tell a story that is at the broadest level going to help people empathize with people who find themselves in as addicts, opioid addicts, and then what are some ways that they can come out of that? What are some ways that we can reduce the harm that this causes? And so the film has a ton of information in it. There's subtitles throughout that kind of frame the issue as well. And so hopefully it kind of speaks for itself after that.
Fantastic. I think that was a great teaser, don't you?
Thank you.
Arc Labs. Looking forward to seeing the clip.
As I said, sobriety is always the best option. But we do understand that not everyone is always in a place where they're ready for that. So I'm happy to talk about harm reduction techniques, if anyone here is interested in that information. Yes, sir.
I'm getting ready to start my 4-step with my sponsor, and I'm a little nervous about it. Having to write down my resentments, my fears.
Avenues of harm reduction, first and foremost, is education. Education on
I'm also in IOP classes. I can see your faces. You just made $1.99.
That's priceless.
Bring Madonna, man.
It's nice meeting you.
Thank you.
You'd like to see us again.
Hello, my name is Shay. I'm an addict, and I'm celebrating 1 month of being clean today.
I have to keep trying it, and I think Shay told me it works if you work it. So, and I want it to work. I need it to work. So, yeah.
So I'm happy to talk about harm reduction techniques, if anyone here is interested in that information.
It's awful. I'm going far from here. There used to be so many nice things here, and now it's just filled with drug addicts.
I know. My cousin Lily, she moved here a few years ago. It was super nice, and that's why I moved here.
Oh, it's very nice. No, I'm done with this place.
That was powerful, and haven't recovered from watching it yet, which means congratulations on a successful project.
Thank you.
That was outstanding. It was so real, and I'm Gen X, so they didn't take the messages and the visualization and the stories of the messages to that extent. And it's so great that we're finally at that point in this 21st century to share the stories of others whose lives are not as fortunate and who are caught up within the marginalization and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if I go more, I'll probably cry. So I'm not going to cry. This is amazing. So backtrack, give us the backstory. How did you get here?
Kathy, I think we start with you because this really originates with your team.
So how we got here was I'm a member of the community response team, which is a group of law enforcement, United Way, providers, sober homes, and it's all focused on the opioid crisis and keeping in the forefront of what we can do. And I'm a member of the Public Policy Committee. And we had several different committees, and please don't ask me to name all of them. But we were tasked with choosing the top 3 areas that we wanted to focus on. So we chose needle exchange, tobacco 21, and sober house registration and certification. And of those 3, we're like, okay, what's the most important? And we chose needle exchange to be our first project. And it's like, how do we get that message out on such a controversial subject and one that is so stigmatized by the general public? Now, you have to remember the audience that we wanted to be showing this to is business owners and general public who don't really understand what's going on with an addicted person. So with this group coming together, we're like, okay, how do we do this? How do we do it? And I said, well, maybe let's do a video. And then we're like, oh God, that's going to cost so much money. And I said, well, let's look into it. And I actually worked with the chamber and my friend Candace Eriks, and she connected me with Phil, who's the executive director.
My boss.
Yes,
Hi,
of
Phil.
the cultural
My
division.
boss.
Yes. And he very graciously offered to scholarship a good majority of the production costs. And then Gary Smythe, who's actually the chairman of the Public Policy Committee, covered the cost for the rest. And then FHE Health covered a lot of the in-kind costs. So that's how it came to this. And but I make it sound so streamlined and quick. It was very big process. And and the United Way's never really tackled something like this before. So this was new direction for all of us. And then we had so many meetings with Tim and the writing and creating of it and going back and forth and how do we depict this. And this is the end product that we came up with, which I think the thing that I can't stress enough, Grace, that I think is so important is telling both sides of the story. That here's watching the success of someone who decides to choose recovery and then watching the decline of someone who chooses to stay in the act of addiction.
And so when this was hot off the press and you had to share it internally, what energy came out of the folks, and how was it received? Well, you're here, so obviously I think it was well received, but did you change hearts and mind? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we are showing it now. So the general public's just now beginning to see it. And the response was exactly what yours was. This is such a powerful, and the way Tim put everything together to tell this story is very powerful, where it puts I think it puts a much more realistic face on this issue, and understanding that sometimes really many people who are suffering from substance use disorder can't just stop. That it has to be a gradual progression, and education on both sides, educating the family, educating businesses, educating the addicted people, law enforcement. We're doing a whole opioid initiative in working with law enforcement on re-educating them on how to deal with this, and giving them the information for the truck that's going to be out in the public here in Broward County for the needle exchange, safe syringe. They're just changing the title, so I don't want to give it too many different names and get in trouble with saying the wrong one. But looking at that and seeing that as a solution,
So it's like I'm a child of law enforcement. My mother and my father. That's great. So, and my mother is amazing. Love my mother to death. Because she, in hearing about all the work that I'm doing and this crossing over with education and arts and public health and all of those things, I get particular insight from her. And one of the things that she pointed out to me is that systems seem to be moving back into the medical model that had been prevalent between the 70s and 80s. And so to hear that is being demonstrated now, then, and what you were talking about with the re-education of law enforcement, it's like we have several generations whose careers have evolved in a punitive model. So it is still part of that trauma. And one of the things I really appreciate about the film is showing both sides, because in the first clip, that part where everything is going well, and then you see that little thing. We talk about triggers. These are triggers, and how they can just send someone into, right back into the dark place. And then also all of our systems, law enforcement, public health, all these systems are made up of people who have families, people who have these things prevalent in their families. So it's like you cannot completely pull the plug ever, because what you are doing triggering someone else, you do the opposite when it comes to your family because you love them, but it's like that multiplier effect. So that same empathy has to be applied. And this is one of the ways to be able to show that, that reminds me of my cousin or my aunt or my brother or my sister. And with the families, it's like, this is part of that process. So we feel less alone. So I commend you all. This was very bold. This is a bold piece, and I'm sure you all are very, very proud of it. And I can't wait for us to really promote it even more. I think it's a great vehicle. So Tim, you brought Casey. So let's.
Yeah. So it sort of picks up there where Phil called me and said, United Way reached out. They want to make a video, and he very much downplayed it. It's not a big deal. It'll be like a small thing. And then I brought it to my group of collaborators, Casey being one of them, and we kind of wrote something that was bigger than, really, we came back with 3 concepts, and we said, one of them was more comedic, one of them was this idea, and I forget what the third was.
I feel like it was a little bit more like informative,
Yes. PSA, that's right.
So, it was less narrative, less kind of couldn't connect as well, I feel like,
So 3 very different concepts, and the team that was on the United Way, and Gary and Kathy and Angela at United Way, they chose the two paths one. So I went back to my people, and Casey and Alana took on the writing process, and we brought a draft. And the writing process, it was several months, several meetings, and this is where I feel like what you're seeing on screen is really the result of really great collaboration, which
Absolutely.
often means tension. And I think the tension that we faced was how do you keep the artistic integrity of something, because that's the position we're coming in from, because that's what we know, and how do you keep the sort of data, the honesty, the truth, the medical truth of what's going on, and how do those things kind of combine? So I'd love to hear from the writing side how you and Alana kind of tackled that.
Yeah, Alana and I, we were kind of originally brought that idea, the two paths of the two different outcomes of what would happen. I think that we really tried to focus as much as we could on actual life and cause and effect of so that audiences could actually relate, find, as you were saying, like that reminds me of my nephew, and it could go both ways as well, where we found both paths could be somebody that it happens all the time. It happens every single day
on the both sides, especially that one scene. Oh, they were just drug addicts,
right?
Blah, blah, blah.
And that
we have people,
that's the linchpin of the whole thing,
right? And we tried to focus a lot on, we knew that it was for the community, for businesses, things like that. So what was going to make the most sense of what people would relate to the most? It's your community. It is, we can all help change, and we can all come together by just flipping your state of mind, by just being able to empathize, to, just take just a moment to think about what these people are going through. And with community support, how many lives we can actually change. So I think it was just an honor. I learned so much writing this, and doing all of the different drafts, and trying to figure out actually what was truthful, was artistic, was a very informative and interesting experience. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think what we had the folks on the ground who are, this is their every single day is trying to solve this problem in our community. And then you have the artists who are learning about a lot of it for the first time,
right?
But we know how to tell a story. And both sides were willing to compromise, take risks. We were willing to do some things because it's like, okay, they need this to be more clear. So let's be a little less subtle and artsy about it and make it more clear. And I think you all probably took an even greater risk of like, okay, let's trust the artists to like do something that's a little out there and a little risky. We might have got our way a little bit more than you all did ultimately. But I think there was a willingness to compromise and live in the tension and work around the tension. And that's what could make something like this really great. When you're trying to combine arts and a specific societal issue, you can't just have someone go in their studio and throw paint on the wall and be like, look how I'm changing the world. It has to be informed. It has to be relevant. It has to be topical.
And that way it's impactful as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
The perfect mix.
So, as part of the collaborative process, and please correct me on terminology because I can be ignorant. Were there addicts engaged in the creative process? Were they involved in informing the works? Can you tell me about what that consisted of?
There were some people in recovery who were some of the extras, but there was conversation with like Gary Smythe has Fifth Street Counseling, which helps a lot of opioid addicted people. The doctor in the film, who was played by a doctor, is our chief clinical officer, Dr. Nelson. And so he had input. And there's also a group that really, when someone has an overdose and they go into the hospital, they have what are called peer support specialists. And the woman who runs that program, she gave input. And so we
There's a
had
lot of
yes.
input.
All aspects of the engagement. So you really put it through the sieve.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And that is
And it didn't get
critical.
diluted. I think that's where my own cynicism
Right.
was like, I was
Okay.
given hope in this project
Mhm.
because I remember feeling, I don't even think I've told you this, Kathy.
Here we
I'm
go.
confessing.
Okay.
I remember feeling like there's so many people who have a say in this. This is never going to get done, and it's going to be so diluted that it's going to say nothing.
Yes.
And I think there was enough people who, like, yes, they gave their input, but that core team did a great job of sifting it. It was like, we don't have to take that. We can not have that. And that's actually a really good insight. Let's make sure we incorporate that. So it's just really good collaboration. And for me, it was like we had the 3 or 4 months. I think we started talking in October of 2020, and we filmed beginning of April, and we finished it in May, June, and we released it a couple weeks ago. So this is almost a year in the making, but that pre-production writing process had a few months. If you have the time, you can sift through the input. You can have those conversations where a lot of people are at the table and giving suggestions. So I was hopeful in that and being able to do that. And I think my cynicism was chipped away at a little bit, which was great.
Well, I confess I had the same fear that I didn't share. So, yeah, but because that was a big part, you know, they say too many cooks spoil the stew. And one of the other challenges is how do you address cultural diversity in an issue like this? Because different communities handle drug addiction in different ways. So I truly believe that Tim and Casey captured the message that addiction knows no boundaries.
And we
You
made
know,
I don't think I told you this, but we made a version completely in Spanish. So all of the actors who spoke ever were bilingual. And then we had all of the subtitles in Spanish as well. So there's also a completely Spanish version of this.
Fantastic. So I hope that eventually there'll be one in Creole and
Yes.
it is critical. And we have to provide folks with as much access as possible. And that's one of the beautiful things about being in Broward County and in South Florida is our diversity is just absolutely amazing. And integrating that within our processes allows us just to have a more richer, better informed community. So tell me how your perceptions changed before and after.
So for me, a lot of behavioral health and substance use disorder treatment has historically been abstinence. You know that you're not going to get this until you're off of everything, and it gave me myself personally gave me a much better understanding of why it's important to view harm reduction, because drug addiction and really substance use disorder, it's not like, okay, everyone who is this age and this personality type is going to get it the first time. It's not a cookie cutter remedy. It is truly individualized. And the statistics showing that people who engage in harm reduction programs are more likely to eventually end up getting sober. So it was very helpful in that sense for me, in just personally. And with how we do business at FHE Health, we're a fully medically integrated program. And we are also we're beginning to offer what's called medically assisted treatment, which is harm reduction. And so we're embracing this because of this conversation.
Oh, that's me. So I really did not know. I didn't know about needle exchange. I didn't know much about I mean, drug addiction in general is not something that I am very involved with in my life or have been. I've been incredibly fortunate, but I think it's so important. And I learned so much, working and writing the script and kind of being able to empathize and get into the brains of people who it's true. There's no formula to this, and there's no, it's a very, very crazy thing. And I think that I've learned so much. I mean, even seeing it, I really haven't seen it very many times now. And it puts you in such I'm just hoping that the community is able to kind of learn and empathize as much as I feel like I have been able to in the past year almost of working on this. And yeah, I think it's just been a really cool process, really informative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the coolest things about being an artist is that you get to dabble in everything. You get to walk in the shoes of all different kinds of people. And I think it's why ultimately in the storytelling arts anyways, we are just like empathy machines, because we live other people's lives and we actually try to make them truthful. And to do that, you have to respect your character. You have to respect who you're playing. And I think I would agree. I did not know about needle exchange, safe syringe programs. That was a new thing for me. Harm reduction was a new thing for me. I think certainly when it comes to destigmatizing addiction and understanding it as a disorder, and that's been something that the last few years has grown for me personally. But the controversial nature of harm reduction and the sort of a critics where it's, aren't you encouraging people to do drugs? And, it's a controversial topic. So to learn about that and then get to tell a story that helped other people learn about that. I mean, I think that's such a sweet spot for an artist to be able to do that. When your work is not, sometimes it's fun to do the fun project or the comedy and you just make people laugh or smile, or it's just something that's pretty broad. It's about, the universal human experience. There's a lot of catharsis that happens in that. But when you can make something that is so specific and has the ability to have such specific impact, it's like, this is the kind of stuff that I want to do all the time. Someone's going to pay me to make this. What?
Yeah.
That is incredible. It has impact. It has artistic value. And it's, we paid several artists. Several artists were hired. This is a professional production. This is, we had volunteers, of course, from, our doctor was a volunteer, and our sponsor was a volunteer, but we also hired professional actors and filmmakers to make this. And so seeing the commingle,
we bring jobs.
it's huge.
What?
we
We provide jobs. Oh, wait, that's called workforce development, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, we do that. Oh, and that's innovation too. Jobs associated with the art making and the system impact. Oh,
Can you believe it?
I had no idea. None. And Tim, this isn't your first foray. We talked about your work with New City Players.
Yes.
And the work around autism and the engagement that went with that. And I know this is a pathway. This project is a pathway of being able to do even more from that multidisciplinary standpoint, because you could get a phone call or someone could call Kathy and then, hey, let's try this through theater, or what if there is an opportunity? As we know, these initiatives cannot be one-off. It has to be an ongoing part of what we do, and it's our responsibility to always find ways to capture our audience's attention. So with the arts and the multidisciplinary aspect of it, it seems to provide opportunities for longer term methods of engagement around a subject matter. You can take this and how are we going to build theater into it, and how can that happen? And you seem to, as an artist and creative with the various businesses with which you're engaged, have been able to really connect those dots. And
Yeah.
so can you talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
that?
sure. So I think, I mean, the coolest immediate result of this project was another organization, Care Resource, um, saw the finished product and said, we are gonna have a mobile health unit. It's like a big truck or van that is actually gonna be a safe syringe program on wheels in Broward, moving around. Can you all make a video about that? And so this led to another project for us where it was also narrative. We told another story, and that's actually premiering tomorrow night. They're launching it's called the Spot. Is this mobile health unit, and it's going to do needle exchange. It can do COVID vaccines. They can do HIV tests. And it's kind of outfitted to be all sorts of different, have multiple uses as it continues to move around.
The kits, they're actually giving them the kits with like the distilled water.
And the Narcan.
Narcan. Narcan is if somebody is experiencing an overdose from opioid, they give them the Narcan and it brings them out of the overdose and it saves their life.
Yeah.
So it's a mobile medical cafe.
Yes. It is. Yes.
Right.
And the primary thing right now is needle exchange.
So those the key issues.
No cost to taxpayers.
And no cost to taxpayers. Yeah. That's right.
So you're able to address multiple critical health points through these medical cafes, and them being structured in a way where people aren't feeling stigmatized coming
it's
in.
An anonymous, it's a totally
setting.
anonymous van. You walk in, you don't say your name. The film we made kind of like walks through the process. It's really, really interesting. Again, learning how this works. We met an amazing woman, Emmy, is it Martinez? Emmy Martinez, who works for Care Resource now. She's just like boots on the ground, has been doing harm reduction work for 10 years, but been in this for 30 years. Yeah. Really amazing. But then linked to that, in terms of how does this continue, New City Players is doing a production next spring. It's called Water by the Spoonful. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning play. And that, half the characters in that play are addicts in a chat room. And that is a huge theme of the play, is addiction, substance use disorder, how that bleeds into the family relationships. And the main character has come back from the war. He's a veteran, and he is kind of secretly building an addiction, and that is the play. So when we do a play like that, we have forums about it. We do a forum leading up to it. So you're going to get another call from me, Kathy, in a few months about that. We do talkbacks. We build in that community engagement. We put the resources in our playbill. We make sure that whenever we do something that is that topical, that it's not just going to be artists telling a story, but we're going to bring in the community and bring in the experts and bring in the people with the experience, the life experience, to help shape that story and the impact of it as well.
And I know this is going to lead to, and I'm sure it's there in some way already, our artists and creatives who have substance use disorders, and being able to harness that energy. And the same way we see a lot of work being done on developing artists who are incarcerated. And so we know that sometimes being artists, sometimes there can be a fine line, because things are felt and seen so deeply, which creates some really great work. But you also have to have
there's a cost.
There is a cost and a consciousness, and it's just historic around what we hear, the accidental deaths, Michael K. Williams, these things being accidental. Yeah.
My sister, who's an artist, died from the disease of addiction. And it was about 12 years ago, and there was no conversation of any of this. And my family had no idea how to deal with it. My parents, because it had been going on since she was a child, in high school. So I'm so happy and elated on a personal note to see this conversation, that we can have it, and that we had the opportunity to do this. It's, you know, Tim, like you said, getting paid for this. How much better can that get? You know, and that maybe my sister gains some peace from wherever she's at watching this, that, okay, good, people are starting to talk about it and get some help.
This has really been near and dear to you.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is part of the reason why, you know, we do what we do. Those of us who are in positions to be able to create and provide opportunities, there always seems to be, you know, there's some sort of connection.
Oh,
we just got to get the rest of the mean world to ratchet up their empathy and start making people suffer for being born. So.
Well, and that's where it's neuroscience, right? It's like you can give someone all the stats in this video are accurate and true and meaningful. But if someone were to read that on a white paper, about 3 sentences in, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're going to pick up their phone. But a story with a narrative hook and conflict, we've been doing this for tens of thousands of years when we were sitting around fires speaking of the day's hunt and everyone was like this. Our brains are wired to latch onto a story, and our brains are wired to mirror. So when we see someone experiencing pain, we actually, unless we're a sociopath, we actually experience, which is another thing that we shouldn't stigmatize, and those people should get help, right? But we actually experience.
If they'll admit to it.
That's fair. That's fair. There's a fine
I know
line
a
there.
few.
A few undiagnosed ones. But yeah, so we see an emotion happening, we see someone experiencing something, and we actually feel it. And that is the thing that softens us, that allows the data to matter, because the data is now attached to a human being.
And that's why the arts are so important. They provide an opportunity to draw that connectivity without putting people on the spot. You didn't have to say anything. It's just if people are able to watch films like this, something's going to be touched, and they don't have to communicate in a way. You know, they can take the experience and hold it and allow it to make any shifts. And that makes it a real personal experience, because people are change is hard. And you're confronted with so many things, especially if you have folks that were on the part of drug addicts and blah, blah, blah. You're watching this and it's like, oh, you shame for feeling that way. But you don't have anybody saying you're shame, you're bad. It's just like you can deal with your own personal embarrassment, humiliation, redemption, in hopefully a shorter period of time. And that's why we do what we do, right? So have you, Casey, with working on this, it seems that it's a really good pathway for other writers to get involved in collaborations. And there are specific things that you have to keep your eyes out for. We talked about the tensions, but this really creates an environment for writers to hone their skills in a way that they may not have thought of before. Like, for example, we have our teaching artist program. And for those going into wherever the kids are in schools and communities, it is important and highlighted these days, the social emotional learning. And we have a lot of our public health issues, all of those things manifesting in schools. So we are doing additional training with our teaching artists to say, okay, here is how you can move this work forward through what you do. And here's where you can go alone, but here is where you can partner with some of those maybe behavioral health and mental health professionals who can help your audience, if tapped, go to the next level, but in a way that it's cared for, so people aren't left alone. So what do you see potential for artists, or what would you say to writers who are thinking about, hey, I never thought of maybe reaching out to these organizations and helping to carve their stories?
Right. The possibilities are endless, and it is so exciting to be able to make such an amazing product with with actual organizations that, know what they're doing. We learn so much, obviously, so I think, I don't know. I do see so much potential for the future of informational films that are filled with artistry, that are filled with, actual things that people can learn about certain subjects that the community needs to be involved in. And I don't know. I think that we have a lot of work to do, but we are, as long as collaborations can continue, we can keep speaking with people that, we kind of get in our bubble a little bit as artists. We speak to only each other. We write about each other. We don't branch out as much as I think we can, and especially, finding these resources. I think it's definitely exciting to be able to start something new and be able to pull in things that are going to affect the community and inform the community. We just worked on the spot. We just worked on another one that I learned even more about needle exchange and more about harm reduction. And I'm hoping that more projects come in the future, because we do have so many artists, so many writers that are in South Florida, and it's crazy, the local talent here, visions, everything that are just blossoming and blooming. So why not keep conversations going? Why not, continue to empathize, continue to grow the community, so that not only just the community can learn, but so can the artists. Because I've said it like 40 times, but we learned so much.
I think you brought up something critical, and I appreciate you sharing that, about how artists stay in their silos.
Yeah.
And so collaborations bearing fruit like this provides, that's more training, more fodder, because we're not going to be able to increase investment within the arts and cultural sector without our artists and creatives getting outside of their silos and sharing and collaborating with each other, with the organizations and businesses that they engage with, so that the benefits, all the fruits get shared by the arts and non-arts sector. And those fruits are born, they're witnessed, people, they're a form of advocacy for us. So we cannot do it without our artists stepping forward in an open way. And it's always a challenge, because it's, where's my next dollar coming from?
Right.
Where's this? And so it's a multi-layered thing, because you can be competitive on where is that next dollar coming from. But our issues are so deep and our talent is so great. There is enough space for everyone to benefit. But it is not going to happen if we don't begin opening up. And I see that there are so many fruitful opportunities with greater investment within the arts and cultural sector in Broward County, particularly for Broward Cultural Division, so that we are able to expand workforce development and entrepreneurial development by having workshops. If you want to engage and support our public organizations, here's ways to do it, so that we are preparing people to work and support that which we're all impacted by: houselessness, affordable housing. I mean, all of these, human trafficking, gentrification, environmental, there's so much beauty. And so I can't wait, because there will come a day where we will see that level of investment increase because of work that's happening, and having non-arts folks provide testimonials to say, yeah, this works.
That was something too. I don't know if you want, that just reminded me when we
about the division getting more money. What?
Wait, the division's going to get more money? when we premiered this a couple weeks ago, I took screenshots of the chat of all of the response because I was like, I have to send this to the people who made this to see, because this was that was really, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, but that was like people in the
Right,
industry
that was preaching to the choir.
choir, and the choir said, wow, this was spot on. So I don't know if you want to show some of
No,
those
absolutely,
comments,
because we have a couple minutes left, and we said we wanted to show it. So perfect timing. My team.
Because why would you
can
invest in
bring some
something
of
that
the-
isn't successful? Oh, I guess this was successful. I guess we should invest in it.
Shameless plugs. Oh, they're not on our. Where are they?
They're on the YouTube.
Oh, they're on the YouTube, but not the projector. Oh. Oh.
Aren't these comments great?
I mean, look at that. There's a pledge for
Oh, look,
$100
there we
million.
go. There you are. And I was the only one there, so it's a lot of great job, Tim. But I was the coordinator. I was the producer. There was so many other talented people who made this happen. You wrote that. Look at that.
Hey.
And this is what I love sharing. We get so caught up in our work and making things happen. We don't end up necessarily really pushing the impact and communicating the impact, because
the impact is just getting started with this.
Yes, and it takes more time. Hey, here's what was said. Here are the testimonies. Here are the evaluations, and then we're automatically on to the next thing. And it's critically important in slowing down. And I find, and I do this myself. I'm next thing. It's like, wait a minute. There was some great stuff done. Support it, and share it with others. So that's why productions like this and the partners who work with us, Broward Cultural Division, Destination Sistrunk, Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau. Did I miss anybody?
The Chamber.
Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce Cultural Council. I do love you. I'm just getting older, but that's why I work closely with people, because we have great synergy. But this is the kind of work that we need to be doing, because it goes out to both public and private sector, arts and non-arts. And this has been a great session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Kathy, thank you for joining us today. I hope there are more projects and other opportunities where you can educate all of us and about what's happening, because those send leads to our artists. This is some of where your work needs to be going. Casey, the same thing. I know that we're going to end up, you'll be hearing from us. We got to do a workshop.
Yes.
And Tim, thank you for your fabulous work and sharing, the depth of the collaborations and learning. And if anyone has any last closing words.
Thank you to United Way. Thank you so much to United Way for having the courage to do this. And to my employer, FHE Health, and to Gary Smythe at Fifth Street Counseling, and especially to Tim and Casey. And to you, Grace.
Thank you very much, Casey.
I guess as artists, our major drive, I feel like, in life is to share the human experience, to empathize, to connect with every living person, as you said earlier. And I am so excited to be able to start bringing it into the community in new ways that aren't just like musicals, all of that. So it's very, very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Tim.
I don't know. I think I'm out of words, but thank you for having us. I am, this is the kind of work that I love to do, that I was honored to do, and all of the connections that happened, all the new people we met, I know will be helpful to future projects. And thank you for bringing this conversation together, because I think as we keep getting the word out about how the arts can affect all these different sectors, and how it is already affecting, and maybe we just haven't noticed, that's where the investment is going to come. That's when the workforce building is going to come. And that's when we can start telling stories and making art that changes lives, changes perceptions, moves the needle on some of these huge issues that you referenced earlier. So thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone. And thank you to all of you in the universe who were able to join us this evening for episode 3 of Fueling Ingenuity, Arts in Public Health. It's been a pleasure to serve as your host tonight. This is Grace Cool. Have a wonderful day and be well to all of you. Good night.